So, what I'm going to talk today is more about a thought starter and how we at HubSpot made a really quick decision to plan our video globally. So, let me get to my clicker. So, what I'm going to do is talk about how we leaned into AI specifically to help us speed up our planning and get closer to our planned delivery for brand marketing. So, again, nice to meet you. My name is Jonathon McKenzie. I'm head of brand paid media at HubSpot. In a previous life, I worked with these wonderful women at Hasbro. And then I also was at Warner Media and then on the agency side as well. So, very familiar with media planning and buying. So, when I joined HubSpot about 6 months ago, the task was we need to expand globally into a few markets. And so everyone loves a good task, very, very easy to do, but instantly we ran into a few challenges. So let me walk you through what the challenges were. First off, as we expand into new markets, what we really had in house from a planning and a resource perspective was mainly North America focused. So MRI, our TV rankers, et cetera, it was very NAM focused. So as we explored into other markets, we just had to really weigh the options here of how do we move forward. I know that like MRI, for example, does have global studies, but with that large investment, with a one-time fee, does that make sense? Should we put it into media? What should we do? So that was one of our first challenges. The next challenge was we understood our target, but we didn't understand locally at a perspective what the consumption was. So Australia versus Germany versus France and et cetera. How should we approach each one of those? And then thirdly, this is the story of a media planner's life, a day late and a dollar short. So we had to enter the market quickly in a really, really smart way. And then here's the last one that makes it really fun. And to be honest, why I was most interested in this position is that there is an internal buying agency. So on the right hand side, let me introduce you to the HubSpot Global Brand Team. We're a lean in-house planning and buying team, managing all of the brand paid media in-house. We set on DB360 and we are hands on keys. So if that is TikTok, if that is Meta, if that is LinkedIn, et cetera, we are hands on keys buying that. So it is so powerful to have the conversations internally, the trust with our marketing teams, and then turn around and execute flawlessly. We also on the brand paid team, we have an out of home buying agency, but just between you and I, that won't do any help on video. So it was great to have them from a global perspective. However, as we focused on video, it's where do we truly invest? And finally, we have a regional marketing POV. So we have regional counterparts that we can work with. But as a media expert, it would be awful if we took them a plan and said, what do you think? Versus leaning into data and then really delivering it in a strategic way. So we had to ask ourselves, where do we start? And we started with two areas. The first area is grounding ourselves in data. So the way that we grounded ourselves in data was to understand and think about our target. Our target is that business decision maker. We know who our target is. HubSpot is not a new company, been around since 2006. So we'd had a lot of first party data or a lot of data in house to at least start this journey on. And then on the right hand side, what we also did was kind of laid the foundation. What do we have in house? How can we get this off the ground? And then what are we missing? So again, as I just mentioned, we set on DB360, so we could buy a lot of the video inventory via in-house on platform. But again, just between us friends, and I think Joe, you mentioned it a little bit as well. As we go up the funnel, the CPM does get higher. So really, how do we really look at that? If we knew we weren't going to invest everything in programmatic, because our goal at brand is to raise aided awareness. So if we just stuck 100% in programmatic, we knew that it likely wouldn't work because we need those premium publishers to really push through. So we then, after grounding ourselves, asked ourselves, what channels are the best for our goals? And this is where the fun happened and when we really started to see some magic internally. And I'll also just say that it is so amazing being at HubSpot. We are very, very leaning into AI, and we are getting challenged every day to continue to lean into AI. And I will just say that AI is incredibly overhyped. It is incredibly overhyped. I agree with everyone that everyone brought it up yesterday around AI. However, there is a way that you can lean into AI and be really smart, and it can also just make you faster to deliver plans. And this is the example I want to walk through. we started leaning in heavily into Claude for global planning. So let me just say two fun facts before we get started. First off, all of the platforms were professionally licensed. So we weren't uploading any proprietary data like into like ChatGPT with just me on like the side, right? With the drink at night. I wasn't doing that. It was a platform that we licensed. And then on top of that, I think this is so fun, but we treat AI as an intern. So AI is great, but it's also just an intern. It will make mistakes, and you still need the media expertise either within the team or within brand marketing, et cetera, to really just make sure, are we landing the plane and how smart are we getting? So again, just keep in mind that everyone on the team basically got an intern. But what was Claude's role? So Claude's role was basically acting as two separate things. So I'm just saying this example, but if we were going into a new market, the team really did two things. Use it as a local expert. So the first one was to just say like, what's going on? We have a cultural event, but what is this cultural event? Is the French Open Roland Garros? Is Roland Garros the French Open? So first, what we said is let's just ground ourselves on what is happening as we go into these markets, and it's as we look at our key timeline. What are we actually trying to do? So we use it as like an ideation phase first. And then second, does everyone use AI projects? Has anyone used AI projects within? Oh my gosh, so fun. I thought this was going to be so redundant and so like awful, but I'll talk about it. So basically we use a Claude project. And what a Claude project is we work with internal teams to then work with proprietary documents, just PDFs. Don't get too excited. I wish it could read Word doc and everything else, but just PDF. So we just worked to get a lot of user info or segmentation around our target. And what we did was make a persona within Claude as a project. So let me show you just at an overview level what that's like. So you could either talk to Claude as a local expert. So like, is it Roland Garros? Is it French Open? What's going on? Does it make sense? Because we're American planners and we just want to make sure that we are being as local as possible. And then on top of that, if we use the Claude project, it understands our target audience. Wow, we could actually ask our target audience, what do you think about this? And then I'll get to the right-hand side in just a second. But we lean on Claude, we ask the question. So imagine local expertise over the Claude project overlay, and we can basically develop a fit score based on our target. So it is a data-driven index. Now, was this used for planning? I would say this was about 30% influenced on planning. But here's what it really did was gain a lot of confidence. So let me go into another example, but let's make it really simple. So this would be exactly how we used it to at least start the conversation to determine how we should plan and why. So if we mosey on over to navigate, if we navigate to Claude.ai, you imagine you're within the project. So the Claude project knows who the target is. And we simply ask one question. Please note that this is dummy data. So this is not actual data. But we can ask a simple question. And this is the thing with brand marketing. On the brand marketing side, there's a lot of feelings in brand marketing, and it's also very political. So you have to kind of root yourself in data, but how do you do that? So even on this example right here, we know our target, but if we were to decide between White Lotus and NBA tip-off, it would be CPM, right? What's the view? Have we done it before? But sometimes if we haven't run something similar, you really want to experiment and test and learn. So just off the top, if we stay in the middle, the media question that we would ask from the media planning perspective is, please develop a fit score for the following video options. And what you'll see on the right-hand side is it is so powerful because it leans into data to help us be smarter on this decision. And here is the best thing. So within the Claude project, we could say, even overall fit score. Why did you give that an overall fit score? Take us back to the actual audience segmentation that leads to it. So then we could source it whenever we're planning as well, or at least helping us plan from a thinking perspective of, does this make sense and why? So here is a few takeaways from why that was so important. We transformed a manual, labor-intensive. I mean, this was a lot of PDFs. Like, first off, no one's reading them, right? Second off, you can't retain it. It's so impossible to retain it. So what we did was we transformed a very manual process into something very, very, very agile and AI forward to make everything faster and smarter. On top of that, like I said, the team, it was actually amazing to see the team within seconds, the confidence from should we go to the French Open or should we buy the French Open to, hey, Fonts TV has this. We think this is the best option. We can buy this programmatically. We can also add on this direct and we can have this sponsorship. The team went from being, how do we approach this to almost local experts. And then what that really allowed us to do was make smarter regional investments and then also grow our regional relationships. So again, overall, just really, really strong. Let me walk you through a more complex example. So again, let's mosey on over to Claude.ai. And this time, under the Claude project, here is what we did. We uploaded a detailed media plan. So again, we all know what a media plan is. You have the placement, you have the timing. What we also did was add additional fields like SOV. We also added things like share a voice. Imagine a really, really detailed media plan. And I'm just making this up, but imagine 25 columns. And the columns all represent different parts of the media plan. You can then work with Claude to say, value this column greater than this column, and etc. So if you have that prompt, what you then can ask is, if you upload the media plan and proposals, what we did was please develop a fit score for the global media plan by tactic, highlighting top performing channels, placements, and identifying video coverage gaps. So what you'll see here is on the right-hand side, this is just a placement, and I just made this as 100% dummy data. But imagine that all of the video placements, what we're able to say is based on our target and based on facts that we know, this is how we would rank them. And again, just a really fun planning exercise. And why it is so important is we uncovered local gaps. So again, if we couldn't buy it locally, what we were able to do is find the rep. If I'm being honest, it's so nice to reach out to a rep and then they're just always responding on LinkedIn. Thank you. We were able to establish great relationships and at least buy it direct. And then also, here is my favorite one. We were able to have a conversation with our target. So it wasn't an index, but we were able to have a confident conversation with our target to just help bring our video plan to life. And then finally, what we were able to do is optimize our budget. So I'll give you two examples. If someone was to come to us and say, we have an X amount of dollars to add, where should we add it to? We basically can say, here are our top placements. Can they flex or can they not? And then if so, we can invest in those. And then additionally, if budget is cut, heaven forbid, and I'm not putting that out there because that's awful. However, if it was to happen, how could we do it in a data-centric way? And again, let's be honest, I'm just making this up, but if they're like, cut 5 million, all the media planners could be like, we'll cut 4, right? We could easily get 4 out, but you're like that last million, you're like, oh, where should we cut? And where are we gonna be smart? We don't want to lose market share. We want to make sure it's a premium impression. And again, this is just a simple way, again, with a fit score or an index score, for us to then say, we recommend cutting these placements. Here's why. Here are the sources that we then recommend and the facts that support this decision as well. Okay, so a couple key takeaways from those wonderful examples. First one is we leaned into AI, and what we were able to do from a planning process perspective is close the regional gaps, specifically for video. So if we didn't consider it, if it wasn't on our timeline calendar, what we're able to do is lean into AI to say, also consider this. Again, example, marathons, etc. Smarter media planning. So we were able to scale. We built a framework that was able to scale based on market specific behavior and then audience centric behavior. So again, within Claude and within our Claude project, we were speaking directly to our consumer. Thirdly, hyper-local execution. So we had American media planners really be able to speak about local activations and really thread that needle through. So we had success in several other countries. So we were able to lean on the success, but then also lean on some sort of data internally that would allow us to make smarter media decisions. And finally, dare I say, an agile, high-impact success. We proved that a small team can execute global media plans effectively with AI. But let me leave you with this. AI won't replace you. but it will empower you to work smarter, faster, and more strategically. Thank you.
Jonathon, thank you so much. I am loving the transparency that we're seeing across these two presentations. So kudos to you for keeping that trend going as well. Questions for Jonathon?
Thank you. Hi, Jonathon. This is Gordon from Empower Media. When you are using AI, how did you go about validating the data set that you were using? I think there was a sentiment yesterday when we were talking about AI. Some companies were promoting AI, and you find out it's just a VLOOKUP on the back end. So, like, when you were evaluating different data sources, what did you do to feel comfortable with the data source you were using?
Yeah, great question. First off, we worked internally with a lot of teams that set up the profiles for us. So we felt comfortable with the data. We also would then question all data. So if there was a fact that you then question to try to go back to the source. But I will say it only made us, like, honestly, 10 to 30% was like what it influenced on the plan, but it made us almost like 60% faster to get it to marketing because we felt confident and comfortable with it. So I would say we continued to question and push back to the actual source. And then the input is really, really important. So then we worked with internal teams to understand what that audience segmentation is to then upload into Claude to then understand how to develop the consumer. So I would say continue, always push back, and then try to source it back to a fact. But it even will say, like, wait, you said that NBA was better than this, and it will be like, oh, you're right. Let me go back and see this. So it is very, very fragile, if you will. So yeah, I would say just continue to ask, what is the data source that supports this? And then also, let's be honest, it really covers your ass when you're presenting the marketing, because you have that fact there too.
Hi, Kathy Collette from Pad Squad. I'm curious, how long did it take your team to get onboarded with it and comfortable? I have a lot of clients who own small agencies that I think would be help them a ton. So I love that.
Yeah, you know what's funny? We're still, like, even with the team internally now, we are still like asking, like the leadership is still asking, like, have you run it by Claude? Have you done these things? So I think that as with everything, it's like a top down perspective. But I would say that as of right now, we are earlier adopters. So I would say that it's still leadership pushing to say, are you still using it? And are you still thinking about it this way? So I would still, so my answer would be leadership needs to push for it and continue to remind, because as a media planner, that's not our first thing to go to. So I would say that yes, you just need to continue to remind and to use to truly be an AI native.
Any other questions for Jonathon? Once, twice. Jonathon, thank you so much.